Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Led by Life. We're your hosts. I'm Rafaela. This is Hannah. And here we are. It's the beginning of June, and we're just going to let it roll.
Neither of us really know where to start with this one. So we're at the 43rd
Yep.
and we're in the Ajna Center.
Yep.
And we were talking about before how we both have defined Ajna centers, but you don't have this gate defined, do you?
No, I do. And I actually have it activated 3 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
Whereabouts activated?
so it's activated twice on the design, on the personality side. Um,
Hmm.
and then once on the design side, right? The body side. And the interesting part is it's activated in Pluto twice.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I could say about this, right, this energy is that when I started to learn about the 43rd, knowing that I had it and that was activated in these places and specifically in the individual circuitry and with Pluto, and Pluto being like, you know, the subconscious, the underworld, like all of these, very, I don't even know how to
Transformation,
describe them. How would you say it?
transformation, depth, and
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, um, I really could like resonate with it in the sense that, and it even talks about something I had just read before we press play record was without the 23rd gate, the person with this hanging gate of the 43 can maybe feel as if they don't know how to vocalize their breakthroughs or their insights, right? And it's really, now that I'm saying this out loud, ironic that I had no idea what we were going to talk about with this. Um, and also kind of trusted, that's why I just showed up either way, right? Trusted that, well, one, I feel like you always pull the enthusiasm out of me. So it just like that connects, right? Um, But then the other thing was like trusting that I don't necessarily need to have it prepared and that whatever thoughts want to come through or drop down or be shared or expressed, they will be
Mm.
because you don't have the 23rd.
No, but I do want to speak to this because I think as someone, so both of us have defined ajnas.
Mhm.
You've got the 43. I do not have the 43 at all, but I have the channel of abstraction, so the 4764. So I've got a defined crown, ajna, and then you, Rafa, have the 56, 1156, which is in
11:50.
the, it's the ajna to the throat. So together we make up, quite a bit of this, and this is a collective circuit, so it's a different circuitry, but I feel like it kind of works in a similar way in that when we're together we often, perhaps I'll pull down ideas and then you help me to articulate them and vice versa. And it's so interesting because I have a wide split definition, so I don't have anything connecting my two head centers to the rest of my chart, which is defined throat, um, G center, heart center. So I've got this big split, and it kind of makes me feel like there's two parts of me.
Mm.
And there is this real frustration for me that I have these kind of insights and I get these downloads, which come from the channel of abstraction, but I often don't know how to articulate them. And it's projected as well. So when invited out, whether it's through a conversation like we're having, or you know it's like I act like a mental projector on the one side and then a self-projected projector on the other side. So all of this to say, like, yeah, I feel that frustration and also the fear of rejection, like the fear if I say something that I'm going to be misunderstood. And I also really resonated with a lot of this the 43rd in terms of the individual circuitry, because most of my circuitry, apart from that channel of abstraction, which is collective, the rest of my circuitry is individual. So I
Mm,
definitely resonated with this, individuality, but also like fear of rejection,
yeah.
fear of being misunderstood, being a bit of a rebel. So yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of my interpretation.
Well,
Mm,
and I think this happens for both of us, like, when our energies kind of connect, we like support the other and it comes together very beautifully. But I also, with it being in the individual circuitry, and look what I was saying before about for me it being activated within Pluto, I,
mm,
um, this rebel thinker of just, different ideas and ways of conceptualizing and all of this. I feel this so personally. So
mm,
oftentimes, like, it's happened here with us, or when we were in the circuitry workshop, it happened a few times. When we're just talking, I will receive so many images. To me, that's my download. Like a download will come through and it will be a breakthrough, an insight. I'll like really see something so clearly. Um,
mm,
and it's like the story gets all layered on top of one another in a bunch of images,
mm.
which isn't like ironic or anything because we're talking about like the third eye,
The-
Ajna,
yeah.
right? Um, and I remember one time I it was actually a full moon, and I think it was a full moon in Aries. It might have been. My mom and I
Mhm,
were driving to South Florida later, like it was nighttime. The moon was there. I was going through a transition period in my life. And I remember I was in the car and all of a sudden, like the emotion just hit. And
mm,
I went through a self-guided internal, but speaking outwardly to her process. And I remember at the end, you know, I'm a lot more expressive with my emotions. I feel them and they're when they come out, right?
mm,
Oftentimes when I have certain thoughts or ideas, they come out, which I wanted to touch on because I did what was the other part I was looking at before we got on here? I can't remember, but it'll come to me. So I remember telling her like I started just having all of these realizations about the way I would show up in relationship and with men and my dad and like all of these, like father wounds and all this stuff. And I'm crying and my mom, I look over when I'm done and I don't think I like really frightened her, but I was having such a internal process of,
mm.
it was just coming out that I don't think she had ever really witnessed that happening. I know
Mm,
this happens for me, whether it's sometimes in a writing session, when I'm journaling, when I'm talking to like people like, very close friends like you, um, you know, there's this layer of like understanding of the language I'm speaking. But for my mom, it was like almost a bit shocking that I had gone so deep, and that's what I wanted to say about the like it being in Pluto and individual circuitry for me, is that this energy will come up. I have no control over it really when it happens, and it will just flush out.
mm, mhm.
And one
It's
of
like the insights, the realizations just have to come out. Yeah.
yeah, like literally, it's called breakthrough.
Mm,
And that's what it feels like it is. And then
mm,
usually afterwards, it's kind of I come back down to neutral and I let it be, and then it's done.
yeah.
Such an individual processing.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have like full-blown conversations with myself.
Yeah, for sure.
The mental projector I've done a little bit of study into because that's part of my process, but it is like talking things out so you can kind of make sense of all these, like there's just nonstop thoughts going on. That's my experience with the ajna. Like I'm always thinking,
Yeah.
there's always something processing, there's always something going on. And it's so interesting because my husband is completely open crown and ajna, and he will literally be thinking about nothing. And like, I think, in the past, I've said, like, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, what are you thinking about? What's going on in your head? And he's like, actually, just nothing. Like, he'll have a song maybe running through his head or something like that. But there's no off switch for me. And, one thing that was really interesting about this is he talks about worrying. And I
Hmm.
think this is actually the repressive nature is worried. And, when and mental anxiety. It also said in the human design book, reading about the 43rd gate, they talk about this idea of mental anxiety. And, it is a very inward process. And when you are kind of focused on yourself, self conscious, really like that worry is turned inward or that overthinking is turned inward, it can be quite harmful. It can cause a lot of mental anxiety. And I have experienced anxiety a lot, in my younger years. I've learned healthy ways to cope with that. And I've also learned to notice it when it happens now. Like often I'll pick up on the fact that I'm becoming anxious or I'm overthinking something or worrying about it. And I'll channel that into some sort of healthy way to cope with it so that it doesn't like eat away at me.
Hmm.
And I think even that is like where, I mean, for me, I'm like, and he even talks about the creative rebel, but for me, like, I'm a very creative person. A lot of my internal things I channel into my creativity, into what it is that I've created. And actually, I kind of had this realization recently that for me, as someone who doesn't have that ajna connected to the throat, I'll be like thinking over things for months, months and months and months. And then I will often arrive at this place of like insight or realization. And it's once it becomes integrated in me, like it becomes something that I like understand, it's then that I'm able to express it from my heart, through my identity center and out through the throat, through the channel of inspiration. So like my process is very, very internal until it becomes like integrated, and these kind of understandings, these realizations. I mean, I know we're talking about a different gate here than the ones that I have defined, but like the way I relate to the Ajna Center and these insights and understandings, mental insights, for me, for it then to be communicated and articulated, it has to like, I have to go through this internal process before it really like becomes something that I feel like I can just express, unless it's invited out through those channels.
Right. I was
Mm,
also thinking like for both of us having defined ajnas, one of the things that then we, like with the human design system is that where you're defined, you're essentially then supporting in the conditioning of those around you. And
mm,
you and I having defined ajnas, right? We're trying to cultivate like a quote unquote healthy, ajna center. And I can see why you and I have both gravitated just naturally to meditative practices, right?
mm.
And concepts like mindfulness and presence and stillness, because ultimately, like, we are here to support those with undefined ajnas from stepping further into, conditioning or not self-theme of the ajna. And I believe it's overthinking.
Well, yeah, to quieten down that noise, like those
Yeah.
practices bring you back into the present where, I've found in my own experience, if I'm fully present, there is no anxiety because I'm not thinking about the past or the future. I'm just here. I'm just observing, I'm just being present. And so, um, yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. I remembered something else I was going to say now, like how this kind of relates to us, maybe articulating or expressing whatever it was that needed to be here today. I had been sort of, every so often, Hannah and I will go through, or not go through, but go back to the basics sometimes.
Mm,
And I recently decided that this was going to be one of my intentions for the month of June was to um, really work on like my throat center because clearly you guys have now been hearing it for a few months now. Like my voice is different. Like it's
Mm,
not, I don't feel like it's in its fullest expression. And so um, I wanted to go back to strategy and authority because well, both of us are, but again, we've talked about how it shows up very differently for you and I, but being an ego manifested strategy and authority, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So strategy of informing and then authority of ego manifested authority. But it's interesting because like these are like, and I can't remember every other, you know, authority type and all that. But for me, with the manifester who is an ego manifester, it feels like the strategy and authority go hand in hand. Like
Mm,
they are one and the same thing because they're connected to the same process of speaking spontaneously, listening to what you're saying in the moment, and
mm,
not needing to control with the mind what wants to be
mm.
said.
That's it. It's not your authority. The
Yeah.
heart has to lead, the heart always has to lead. But there's obviously like a reason why you're designed with the way you are with the ajna, because it still comes into play. It's still a really important part of who you are
Hmm.
and what you articulate, but it's not like necessarily your authority. It's not here to make the decisions.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's kind of one of the things that I'm working with, I would say this month is like practicing the very basics of human design all over again. Um,
Mm,
and seeing how how things like just sort of unfolds in
mm,
in the experiment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, like there's stuff I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. Um, so fitting.
It is. And we're both a little bit, I think we're both right now a little bit like,
Like there's stuff there, but it's like,
mhm. Actually,
um,
the Jen and Zoe had mentioned something about like a very large like solar flare happening. This she posted it like 10 hours from when I had seen it. So it was recently. I just saw it a little bit ago. And if you're listening to this on this day of what we're recording, June 2nd, June 3rd for Hannah, um, she was mentioning like you might be off out of it or like not super clear or foggy or may have a headache or fatigued. And I will say, yeah, and like today has been one of those days for me. Like I've
mm,
just not really felt sort of in it, like not in a flow, in a groove, like just a little foggy, like unclear, clearly don't even really know what to articulate today. Um, but also just being present with it?
mm. Yeah, I think that's something that human design has really helped. Well, learning about my own mechanics and human design has really helped me with is just so much more acceptance for however I'm feeling.
Hmm.
You not always. There's often still resistance, but um, just not nearly as much judgment as I used to experience about how I'm feeling. And I feel like he even talks about that in this. He talks about like moods and how we're always trying to escape the way we feel, or
Yeah.
yeah, like again, I don't even know what to say. But there was something I really wanted to say, and I think it kind of relates to this idea of deafness. So that's the shadow frequency is deafness.
Hmm.
And then the gift frequency is insight. And, we've talked about how this is individual energy. And I'm just really, really noticing, and obviously, like, this is the purpose of human design, is to bring us back to our unique individuality, to differentiate ourselves. We're moving into an individual era,
Hmm.
out of this collective. time that we've been in. And I'm just noticing how much more like people are stepping into their authority, because authority is about you making your own decisions for you, knowing what's right for you. And really, it is about quietening down the outside noise, listening to what is true for you. And I think that that's like so much of what this gene key
Hmm.
is about being able to like harness that shadow of deafness in a way that quietens down all the outside noise, all the programming, all, you know, the status quo. And so that you can hear your own inner voice.
Yeah, and you had said it earlier, the fear of rejection. That is one of the main themes within the gate
Mm,
of breakthrough, the gate of insight, right? Is this that there's this fear of rejection. And if you think about really what we're being asked to do when we need to step into our own individuality, is that we honor that. And the funny thing about this channel is it's called the Genius to Freak because
mm,
of sort of the out of the norm ways of
yeah.
conceptualizing and bringing ideas through and maybe opinions and thoughts, and kind of like with my example, what I was sharing in the beginning of today's discussion with like this process that happened very outwardly,
Mm,
but so personal, almost like my mom wasn't there. She was just kind of like a soundboard for the whole thing. But like it
which
had,
is really how the mental projected
yes,
authority works. You need that sounding board. It's like it's similar to, it's different but similar to the self projected
right.
authority. But go on, I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Right. And so like with that is just this ask of us to stand pretty firm in our individuality, whether it comes to our difference of opinions or ideas or, um, you know, thought processes or the way in which we think or conceptualize things.
Mm,
For me, I will say that things like that happen. And then oftentimes, and I think even more so right now in my life, I am in a process where there is a whole lot of creativity happening around me, within me, through me. And to this conversation right now in this moment is even reminding me that I have to honor that part of myself and
mm,
lessen the fear of rejection that this isn't going to be approved in some way. Um,
mm,
I feel like I had a lot of momentum and I was flushing out ideas and I was saying all these things and they were just, and then maybe with, the urges of a manifestor, it kind of like dipped. So it's interesting that when it dips, and
mm,
something else that actually I had just seen that Jen has always said was like manifestors, projectors, and reflectors not having that defined sacral. So they don't know when to stop, right? And I feel like all of this right now, probably the 43rd is being activated as we're speaking about it because I'm just processing now. I'm just
mm,
realizing a whole bunch of things as I'm sharing it with all of you guys of what it means for me to not worry about the outside noise, thoughts, opinions, ideas, beliefs of others around me.
mm,
And to really trust that I know very clearly what is correct for me in my life or what is even meant for me to share. Part of the ego manifested authority is to really just speak spontaneously and not try to come it from here, from my mind, but just let it flow out my body.
yeah.
Hmm. So there it was in live action.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think really we all need to start to listen more to that. And he talks about getting quiet, you know, getting this relaxed state. There's something else that I wanted to say and I've just lost it. But I've had this voice talking to me like for a long time now. And
Mhm.
it's like my own inner voice, I suppose. And it said, like, get quiet and get clear. Get quiet and get clear. And like, don't listen to the outside noise. And I think this is very much a part of the individual circuitry. It is like tuning into your individual um, process. And so yeah, I don't even know what to say with what to do with this, but like I've been hearing this voice for a long time, like get quiet and get clear, and also just like just focus on what you are here to do. Stop getting distracted by
Mm,
like everybody else's thoughts and opinions. And oh, that's what I was going to say. It's not about not caring, right?
yeah.
Not worrying what other people think is very different from not caring. Because I heard this said somewhere and it really resonated with me because it's like, you hear a lot about like the fear of what other people think, the fear
Mm,
of being perceived, the fear of being seen, the fear of rejection, and you got to not care about what other people think, and like we're humans, of course we care. So I think it's really about not like worrying, not overthinking, not letting that interrupt you and your process and what's right for you. Right. So there's a difference. Like you can observe, you can listen, you can take in what other people's thoughts are and respect it, but it's like discerning, okay, that's your opinion. I don't need to be threatened by that. It
mm.
doesn't need to threaten my own opinion. And like I can still have my own thought and perspective on this and respect that it might not be the same as yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a, the way you describe it even more so, it's like such an individual experience, right?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, oh, the city's epiphany.
And I, again, can't really remember exactly what he says here, but he talks about surrendering, and it's almost like giving up your own individuality at
Mm,
this point and
mhm.
realizing that, you know, you're not even like there is no individual.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you say what is in one is in the whole? Because I feel like that's something that I've been hearing a lot recently in just some of the my own things that I've been listening to. What is in one is in the whole. So ultimately, you know, kind of all of it together.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about this process of survival and service and surrender and how they kind of match up with the frequency bands, the shadow, the gift, and the city. And and I just love how we need every step of the process. Like you need to harness the shadow to
Hmm.
fully express, this the service of the gift. But then when you get to the city, you can see all you have this vantage point of all perspectives. um
That's sort of where the surrender happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
Mm,
so nice. The way
yeah.
you just laid it out. If only it were that simple every single time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think today's going to be a short one, guys.
yeah,
I kind of wrapped it up, and we'll see you on the next one.
yeah.